These people are in line to vote early in Philadelphia. Nothing unusual about that, except these voters had already voted. They cast their ballots by mail, but they were missing one thing: an accurate, handwritten date. The lawsuit that got these ballots thrown out was filed by the Republican National Committee. It's part of a larger effort led by allies of former President Donald Trump, many of whom ran for election in the 2022 midterms. In the news, you'll often hear this group referred to as election deniers. And while it's true, they do still deny that Joe Biden won in 2020, what they can do is just as important as what they say. In 2020, nearly 3/4 of U.S. voters cast their ballots early or by mail. But these politicians want to limit and even get rid of these practices altogether. This plan is what motivated thousands of volunteers across the country ahead of the 2022 midterms. They didn't just fight election deniers. In a lot of places, they beat them. And how they did it could be the key to protecting free, fair, and open elections in the U.S. for years to come. Let's take another look at those mail-in ballots in Philadelphia.
On Monday, I got 15 calls and 10 text messages from a variety of volunteers and political people about my ballot.
The day before the election, I got a text from a friend.
Like thousands of other voters in Pennsylvania, Kristen and Zoe had already verified their identities by providing a Pennsylvania-issued ID number when they applied for their mail-in ballots. Their ballots had been postmarked and stamped by the Philadelphia Board of Elections on the day they were received. And yet,
these lists came out that list people who had sent in a mail-in ballot that was invalid for some reason. Your name showed up. I was disappointed in myself for a second. I'm how did I date this incorrectly? I really thought I was following all the, the rules and what the guidelines are to how to fill it out.
Pennsylvania has had mail-in voting since 2019, and in every election since then, multiple judges have ruled that missing date should not mean a ballot gets thrown out. But just weeks before the last day to vote in 2022, a group of Republican politicians sued to try to get a different ruling. And it worked.
The candidate at the top of the ticket for Republicans, the gubernatorial candidate, Doug Mastriano, was noted election denier. I am the elections director for the Mid-Atlantic region for the Working Families Party. I'm a proud resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the greatest city in the world. We knew that there was a risk that people would use mail-in voting specifically as a way of attacking the legitimacy of the elections overall. We ended up with over 1,300 unique volunteers who are calling voters to help them cure ballots and make sure their voices were heard.
Doug Mastriano lost his bid for governor, and Democrats now control the Pennsylvania State House. If enough state reps want to change that rule about the handwritten dates on the outside of envelopes, they can. Like Mastriano in Pennsylvania, one of the candidates for governor in Michigan, Tudor Dixon, had also cast doubt on the 2020 election results. More than half the state's 5.5 million votes in 2020 were cast by mail. And even though Republicans in the state Senate authored a report that found no evidence of widespread or systemic fraud, that didn't stop Tudor Dixon from tweeting about stolen elections. And it didn't stop the Republican-led state legislature from introducing 39 bills to dramatically limit mail-in and early voting.
There are many, many reasons why people would want to vote by absentee ballot, but for some reason, some politicians want to make it harder.
Kim's organization, Voters Not Politicians, recruited more than 300 volunteers and knocked on over 100,000 doors.
I remember on election day, I woke up at about 6 o'clock in the morning. I went all up and down my street.
I really want to talk to you today about Prop 2. It's going to give us all the constitutional right to vote without harassment or interference, including by our own legislators. It's going to give us all 9 days of true early in-person voting.
If you rode through Detroit, you would see this area, especially where I live, it was covered with Prop 2 sign. Yes, on Prop 2.
You're going to be able to opt into, a system where you can request your ballot once and then get it for every future election.
It was worth it. In the end, it paid off.
Prop 2 passed in Michigan by a large margin, and Tudor Dixon lost. But even if she hadn't, because of Prop 2, Michigan's constitution now contains an explicit promise to the state's citizens that their votes will be counted.
I'm passionate about voting rights. I know what my ancestors went through. So I'm here to fight for democracy, and I'll be here until I leave this earth.
The issue of voting free from interference was front and center in Arizona, too.
I have been so pleased to hear of all you vigilantes out there that want to camp out at these drop boxes, right?
Kari Lake, one of the candidates for Arizona governor, tweeted her support for this surveillance project. Smile, you might be on camera.
So we're going to have people parked out there watching you, and they're going to follow you to your car and get your license plate. It's going to happen.
She was right. It did happen.
Armed vigilantes dressed in tactical gear.
Guys in body armor carrying guns and taking your picture.
Poll stalkers, people who've been staking out ballot drop boxes under the guise of preventing widespread voter fraud.
People spoke up. They dropped off their ballots, and then they filed complaints with the Secretary of State.
There's a group of people hanging out near the ballot drop box, filming and photographing my wife and I as we approach the drop box and accusing us of being a mule.
Camo-clad people taking pictures of me and my license plate as I dropped our mail-in ballots in the box.
A pro-democracy group filed a lawsuit, and the judge issued a temporary restraining order. The people voted, and Kari Lake lost, by a very small margin. The ballot drop boxes she threatened to remove, the early voting she threatened to cut off, they're both safe. For now. The US doesn't have one big election. It has over 3,000 small elections, run mostly by volunteers in high school gyms and libraries and community centers. And that can make it easy for some politicians to cast doubt on their efficacy out of self-interest. But it also means that anyone who cares about making them actually work can go from a bystander to an active participant in the fight to keep democracy alive and well. Anyone can go from standing in line to standing behind the table. Thank you guys so much for watching. One of the things we're trying to do on this channel is really just be like your one-stop shop for context for the news. Like if something is happening, you're seeing lots of headlines about it and you want to dig deeper, you want to know more, like that's what we're here for. One of the ways we're actually trying to do this is by answering your questions. You can send us a question and we will dig in and try to find some answers for you. Like a couple of weeks ago, Kim and I made a video about the ethics of zoos that came from an amazing question from one of our subscribers, Gurav. A few months back, Joss made an incredible video about the history of unions and why they didn't gain more of a foothold in the service industry in the US. These are the kinds of questions that we love digging into, stuff that comes from your brain. Like you guys are smart and we want to work with you. So check out the form. It's linked in the description of this video. Fill it out, ask us a question, and we'll get some answers. Thanks for watching.